Brittney, and this is my coming out story. So where do I even start? I guess I can start kind of when I first remember even having a crush on a girl. So I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I can still to this moment vividly remember having two next door neighbors, and they were both obviously girls. And even though they were older than me, they were the same age as my brother and sister. So obviously they were best friends of ours. We spent a lot of time at their house and vice versa. But I could just remember one time I was getting my hair done by the older sister, and I just remember thinking like, oh, she smells good. Like, oh, like she's really like pretty, and like, oh, she's super nice. And obviously when somebody's older, it's like they have that seniority over you, and you just kind of feel like look up to them. So at the time I couldn't tell if I just looked up to her because she was pretty, like she just was like everybody liked her or just loved her at the time, or if I really just like girls. Now, what I will say is at that time I had a neighborhood boyfriend. So I will say from a kid all the way up until about high school, like I had a boyfriend of some sort. But again, I still remember, like I said, having a crush on my next door neighbor. Now, fast forward, at some point when I was about like 11 years old, my parents moved us to Plano, Texas. So even though I was born in Little Rock and I went to elementary there, I also went to elementary here in Plano, Texas. But at a young age still, I never saw gay. I mean, honestly, in our household, we couldn't even watch The Simpsons. Like, we used to try to sneak and watch The Simpsons, and then if we would hear somebody, like, we would turn to something else that we could watch. So what I will say is, it's not that I grew up in a strict household, because by no means did I. However, we had structure. I couldn't, again, like watch certain things on TV. And I don't know if it's because, you know, obviously Simpsons can be a bad influence, so our parents just didn't want us watching that. But what I will say is, again, I never saw gay. I didn't have any family members that I saw were gay. I hadn't seen it on TV or seen it in person. So how I felt as a kid and in middle school and high school, those were my genuine feelings. So like I said, fast forward to when I get to the 9th grade, I just, I started to have a crush on a girl. And at that time, when you're in high school, or even at that time, we just called it, it was high school, the 9th and 10th grade, and then our 11th and 12th grade was considered our senior high. But at that time, I just always remember like, how can I like a girl? Like, I have a whole boyfriend. Like, where they do that at? But again, me being me, I just kind of brushed it off. Now, I will say, I've always somewhat been a tomboy. Like, always. Even when I was telling you the story about living in Little Rock, I used to love hanging out with the boys. Like, I used to want to be able to play football with them. I used to want to be able to play, like, baseball with them. I used to want to do everything with the boys, and I couldn't tell if it's because I liked them or if it's just because I was a tomboy and I was into sports. But again, now fast forward again back to being in high school, and I started liking this girl, and we would exchange letters like most high schoolers do, where you get the colorful pens and you just writing like all this stuff, like, how was your third period going? Like, what'd you bring for lunch? Or I can't wait to see you in the hallway the next period. Now, of course, when you young like that, you don't think to yourself like, oh, I gotta cover all my tracks because I'm not supposed to be liking a girl. Well, me being me, apparently one day, I forgot to take the note out of my pocket. Now, growing up, I didn't wash my own clothes. My mom washed our clothes. So we just put them in the hamper in our bathroom, and my mom would wash our clothes. Well, I vividly remember, I will never forget this day. I'm upstairs in my room, and all I hear is Brittney Danielle Vaughn. And I'm like, okay, if my mama say my full name, I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm in trouble. Like, I don't know what I did, and I'm sitting there on my bed. I have like a day bed, and I just remember thinking like, I ain't did nothing. What I do? So I didn't say anything because it's like I wanted to see if my mom was gonna say my full name again. So a couple seconds pass, and I hear Brittney Danielle Vaughn, get down here. And I'm like, okay, I'm in trouble. Like, I don't even know what I've done. So, I get up, obviously, and I'm like, yes, ma'am, here I come. So I go downstairs, and I'm looking, and I don't see my mom right away. I go around, and I can see into our laundry room, and my mom's standing in the laundry room doorway, and she has a sheet of paper just holding it up right here, like, what is this? And from afar, I'm like, dang, like, I'm like, a letter, and I could tell it had the colorful writing and everything. And I'm like, a letter? And she was just like, come here. So, I'm walking over there slowly, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, dang, what's in this letter? Like, I don't know what letter I left in my pants pocket. And so my mom proceeds to tell me, like, what's going on? Like, how are you, what is going on? This is a letter to another girl that was written to you. So what is going on? And I'm just like, nothing, we're just friends. And, at the time, it's just like, I was so scared to even try to explain what was going on. Because honestly, I didn't know. I just, like I said, I liked the girl. She liked me, I guess. We was writing letters back and forth. I didn't think anything of it. So my mom was like, do we need to have a talk? And I'm like, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. She was like, is this going to continue? And I'm like, no, ma'am. And I just remember my mom being like, I'll talk to you in a minute. Go upstairs. I'll talk to you in a minute. So, I go back upstairs, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, oh, man, like, what do I say? What do I do? Like, so I would say it's probably about 5 or 10 minutes. Like, I don't really know how long it was. It felt like forever, but my mom comes upstairs, and she like sits down on the bed, and she was just like, we didn't raise you like this. Like, that was the first thing that came out of her mouth. Like, we didn't raise you like this. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I didn't know I was being raised a certain way, but just the simple fact of her saying, like, we didn't raise you like this, my first response was like, yes, ma'am, I know, like, that's all I really could say. And she was like, do I need to tell your dad? And I'm like, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I was like, are you going to tell him? And she was just like, do I need to? Is this something that's going to continue? And I just remember telling her, like, no, like, it's nothing. Like, it was just a letter. Like, it's nothing. So, I guess you would call that my coming out story, because I never really actually came out. But the reason why it was so important to me for her not to tell my dad was because my dad is a preacher. I am a PK, and that's what they call a preacher's kid. And I knew that my mom was going to be hard on me, but I felt like my dad was going to be even harder, because it goes against everything that he preaches for. Like, it goes against all of that. So I just remember being fearful of my dad finding out that I was gay. And I just remember telling my mom, like, I don't want you to tell him. Like, it's not going to happen again. Like, it's nothing. Now, still to this day, I don't know when or if my mom told him, but what I will say is I ended up getting caught on the phone talking to a girl. It wasn't like right away that same weekend or the same month. It was just at some point I ended up getting caught talking on the phone to a girl, the same girl, which happens to be my very first girlfriend. And at that time, again, I remember my mom at that point telling my dad that I was gay, or that I, was liking girls. And I'll never forget it. He called me downstairs and told me to sit down. He had a Bible in front of him, and he read me the Bible verse as far as, a woman shouldn't lay with a woman, all of that. And he was just like, you really need to soul search. Like, this isn't the lifestyle that we have, that we want for you, nor is it the lifestyle that God wants for you. So you need to soul search and basically find another interest, because this isn't it. And I just remember pretty much not being able to really do too much, like not really be able to go anywhere. I will say, because I played sports all of my life, one of the only things I really could do was I was allowed to go to practice, I was allowed to play basketball, and I traveled pretty much all over the world for basketball. So at that time, like, I still got to have somewhat of a life because I played basketball, but when it came to just being being able to do stuff, like, I wasn't allowed to do sleepovers with girls, just because, again, I think they wanted to keep me away from anything that had anything to do with spending time with girls. So that's kind of, again, another phase of my coming out story. Now, what I will tell you about my story is I like to think of myself as someone who has accomplished a lot in life. And I would say from a very young age, I spent a lot of time trying to please my parents. And I don't know if it's because I felt like I had a deficit of, I know that I like girls and I know that I'm gay, so this is a strike against me. So obviously I made all A's in high school. I got accolades after accolades. I played select sports, won awards for basketball, all of these things. And even when I got into college, I will tell you, I struggled personally with trying to be perfect for my parents. Now, I have a little bit of a rebellious side. At the age of 16, before I even went off to college, me and my mom had got into it, and I basically told her, like, I don't want to live in your house. Like, I don't want to live under these rules. I don't want to live here. Like, if I can't be me, I don't want to live here. And if you know my mom, her personality, when I tell you my mom loves her kids to death, but that day my mama said, "Oh, you don't want to live here?" Well, I had already packed up my stuff. When I tell you my mom grabbed my stuff, opened the front door, and literally was chunking my bags out the door, talk about, you can leave, you can go, I don't care where you go, but you're not going to disrespect me or your dad in this house. And if that's the type of lifestyle you want to live, you can leave. So I left. And my high school coach at the time just kept telling me, why did you miss practice? And I was just like, well, I'm not at home, and I don't have a car or anything, so I'm getting here as early as I can, the best way I can. And I just remember him telling me, like, I know you don't like your situation at home, but your parents love you and you need to go home. So I would say I was gone probably for about 3 days, which as a high schooler, that is a long time. Like, to just be out of your from under your parents' roof and living somewhere else, just because they don't agree with your lifestyle, definitely that's big. For as long as I can remember, at least 20 years now, like, my dad has been a preacher. So when I was in the 9th grade, my dad was already a preacher, which meant everything that he stood for didn't align with me liking girls. So I can honestly say that was a rough experience for me just because I've never really been a daddy's girl, but I'm a daddy's girl in a sense of my dad and mom paid. I don't know how much money they spent for me and my brothers and sisters to be able to travel the world to play sports, but I know that they loved us. I know that they did everything in their power to give us the opportunities, exposure, experience, moving us to Plano, allowing us to have the life that we had. I know that they loved us and I know that they love me. However, when you are that young, you feel as if your parents don't love you because they don't understand your lifestyle or your preference or your choice. And what I can say looking back now, I know my parents loved me then. Even when I got into it with my mom, or even when I would argue with my dad, I just remember getting so mad, wanting to just fight my dad because I just felt like I could not be myself. I could never really be myself. And it's not to say that they didn't love me, because I know that they do love me. I know that they did love me then. But I can say that I felt a void at a young age because I never really felt accepted. I never really felt like I could be myself. I never really felt like they loved me the same as my brother and sister, just because, like I said, I was gay. So I can admit that for a long time, I would seek acceptance from my parents, whether it be, making sure I make all A's, or even in college when I made the dean's list, receiving awards. I've always been good at managing money. I've always been good at upkeeping things. I've always been good at being clean, being neat. So for the longest time, when people don't understand why I am the way I am, I think it's because I've always tried to be perfect for my parents, because I felt like those were the only people I was genuinely letting down. My brother and sister found out I was gay around the same time, 9th, 10th grade, and they were already off to college when it blew up at home. So I was pretty much an only child for 2 years by myself, because my brother and sister already went to college. So I always felt like all eyes were always on me. I have to be perfect. I have to do everything right. And last but not least, I can't be gay. Like, I cannot like girls living under my parents' household. After a while, that catches up to you. It plays, it takes a toll on you. And what I can say, where I'm at today with it, is that as much as I love my parents, as much as I love my family, I honestly don't care who accepts my lifestyle, who is comfortable with it, who's not comfortable. I've realized that's not my problem. I can only be me. That's my testimony. And I always try to tell people, whenever younger kids or just younger adults reach out to me, I always try to tell them, hey, this too is going to pass for you. Like, at some point, you're going to find acceptance within yourself. So nobody else's validation matters. And that's currently where I'm at. Like I said, I have a beautiful wife. I have 2 dogs. I have a job that I love. I have a home that we've grown to love and grow into. And I think every single day, the only person I want acceptance from is, number 1, is God. And then number 2, I want to make sure I'm doing right by my wife and pleasing her. But for so long, like I said, I felt like I needed that acceptance from my parents. So I would be like, oh, did you see the award I got? I won the Robin Roberts Award. Oh, or I have this much money in my bank account. Or, oh, every time you come over, they're always like, everything's so nice and clean and so in place. And, oh, you have a nice car. I just always wanted to exceed their expectation, or at least let them feel like, hey, even though I like women, I am who I am. Y'all didn't fail as parents. And if there are any parents that are watching this wondering why their kids may be the way they are, honestly, just know that it has nothing to do with you. Each individual is going on their own journey, and it's for them to figure out the same way it was for me to figure out. In high school, I had boyfriends, so therefore it wasn't like I was just trying to, like girls to upset my parents. I just liked what I liked. And I've never labeled myself as a stud, a butch, or any of those things. I've always labeled myself as Brittney, even as a tomboy. I've never really said like, oh yeah, I'm a stud, I'm hard, I'm this. Like, no, I'm just Brittney, and I like who I like. I love who I love. And honestly, I just, men just have never been for me. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Yeah, I don't know any other way to explain it except just be you. Don't worry about what anybody else has to say. Don't worry about other people's opinion of you. Don't worry about anyone except your well-being, your mental health, your physical health, and just be true to yourself. Like, I'm an advocate of people being exactly who they are in that moment. I genuinely and honestly believe that God does not make mistakes when he makes any of us. And I genuinely believe no matter who I decide to love, that my relationship with God is the only thing that matters. So not my parents can't get me into heaven. My parents cannot get me into hell. My friends can't get me into heaven. My friends cannot get me into hell. Money can't get me into heaven. Money can't get me into hell. My accolades, none of those things really matter except my relationship with God. So my I guess message to you is, if you are struggling with coming out, it'll happen however it's supposed to happen. Whether somebody tries to pull you out the closet, whether you are trying to figure out how to tell your best friend or tell your family member, just know that, it's going to happen how it's supposed to happen. And if someone were to tell me when I was in high school that I would have the relationship that I have with my mom right now, I would be like, you lying. There's no way. The same mama who threw my bags out the front door and closed the door and locked it behind me and told me that I could leave, there's no way. But like I said, I've evolved over time. My mom has evolved over time. And I think, I honestly think my mom is, came to the realization like, hey, we did a good job as parents raising her. It's her life to live, her choice to make if this is what she wants to do. She knows how we raised her, and it's her life to live. So needless to say, my mom is one of our biggest supporters. My mom loves Dory, my wife, and it's just a great thing to have. Now, what I will say, my dad has not evolved in that sense, and most of you know that he did not show up to our wedding. I'll leave that story for another day, but just know that everybody isn't going to agree. Time doesn't always fix things. Time doesn't always heal things. But again, if you are secure in yourself and confident in yourself, no person can or should sway you from who you want to be with. And at the end of the day, I don't think there is any other way or reason why I would have ended up with a man. Like, that's just never really been my story. Even when I had boyfriends, like, I was never, like, I don't mind telling y'all, I'm a virgin. So that should just let you know, like, that's never really been my story. I knew at a young age, and when I got old enough to like who I liked, that's what I went with. And I never let a boyfriend or anything deter that. And it's not like I wasn't, tempted. It's just like I said, I never really went that far because that was never my story. So I know I've done a lot of rambling. I will say it took me a long time to record this video because I really didn't know how I would tell it. But this is the most authentic that I could give you. This is me giving you myself, telling you my story. And I just want to encourage anybody out there who is struggling with coming out. Just know that this too shall pass, and whatever you're going through, what is meant to be will be. And just know that life is a journey, and a roller coaster. So all of the emotions that you're having right now, nervousness, scared, afraid, that's all natural. I mean, I still feel those feelings sometimes as an adult. But just stay the course. And if you're being true to yourself, then it's all going to work itself out. Now, if you just dabbling because you want to dabble, then have fun, but just know that it is what it is. So I guess that's all I have for y'all. I'm happy to be done with this video. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, feel free to hit the subscribe button. This is a channel with me and my wife, but again, I am bringing you my coming out story because it has been asked. But definitely rock with us. Continue to vibe with us. We know, hopefully you guys know that we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. And that's all I got for y'all. We out. So it's your girl, Brittney. Dory's somewhere in there. And we are Brittney and Dory.
Stop what you're doing, hit the subscribe button. And if you've been subscribed, then you've been riding with us. Ain't nobody gonna hold you down like I do.
Stay true to you like I do.
Spoil you like I do.
Adore you like I do.
Clean for you like I do.
Cook for you like I do.
Ride it down with you.
Ride it down with you. And that's why I said I